Numantia. Celtiberian Wars and Numantine Resistance. Throughout the 2nd century BC, Rome conquered Celtiberia, an area which spread from the Ebro Valley to the waters of the High Douro, High Tagus and Halon River. The Romans' advance started from the Mediterranean coast, up the Ebro Valley, and then across the Iberian and Central mountain ranges, reaching the High Douro little by little, taking the interior of the peninsula. In 179 BC, Tiberius Sempronius Gracchus sent his legions to suppress a Celtiberian uprising that would end in the Romans' victory over the Celtiberians in the Battle of Mons Chaunus, probably referring to the Mount Moncayo. This led to the Gracchus Treaty, which involved lasting peace and the commitment of Ebro Valley Celtiberians not to build new towns or fortify existing ones. The resumption of hostilities from the year 154 BC onwards will move the war further inland, shifting the border to the High Tagus, Halon and High Douro. The Celtiberian Army. Celtiberians, renowned for their bravery and speed in combat, went to war on horseback and in groups on foot. They used a tactic that the Romans named concursare, based on quick and surprise movements of attack and retreat. This strategy worked best for them in narrow and steep terrains, which hindered mobility, especially against an army with the characteristics of the Romans, perfectly trained, armed, and tactically disciplined for formation combat. The Celtiberians' armament was light. As offensive weapons they used double-edged sword with a sharp end, used by the Romans, named gladius hispanensis. Daggers with 2 kinds of handles, biglobular or pediment-ended. Spears with iron tips, which they were very skillful with. Sling to cast stones. As defensive weapons, small circular shield or caetra. Leather and metal helmets, sometimes double-crested. Breastplates and chainmail, as well as leather or metal greaves to protect the legs. In the case of the cavalry, the Celtiberians rode without saddle or stirrups. They just put a rug over the back of the horse and they used leather straps as reins. As armaments they used spears with metal tips and iron ferrule at opposite side of a wooden pole. Sword and shield, the same as those used by infantry. The Roman army. From 153 BC, Rome sent consular armies to Celtiberia consisting of 2 legions with 4,200 men in each, joined by mercenary troops. This enabled them to mobilize armies of 35,000 and 40,000 men, reflecting the importance given by Rome to the war against the Celtiberians. The legion was divided into 60 centuries, of 60 soldiers each, which in order to be more effective were grouped in 30 maniples, made of 2 centuries each. The formation of the Roman army was divided into several lines. First line, light infantry, armed with spears, which were thrown at the beginning of combat. Afterwards they withdrew behind the heavy infantry. Second line, divided in 3 lines of heavy infantry, hastati, princeps, and triari. They were armed with 2 javelins and a sword, and were protected with a helmet, breastplate, shield, and shin pads. The hastati attacked first. then replaced by the princeps in case they had been weakened, and these by the triarii if necessary. Besides the infantry, Rome's army formation was made up of the cavalry, which was located in the wings of the formation, thus covering both flanks of the infantry. The armament they used was the spatha, similar to the gladius, but longer, spears with metal endings and wooden poles, chainmail, and helmet. They protected themselves with rounded shields made out of wood and iron. As well as the bow and the artillery, the catapult stood out, used to launch javelins. And the ballista in order to cast boulders. Battering rams, beams with hooks or spikes were used to attack the walls, as they could pull off and make holes in the stones. The wars which changed the calendar. In 153 BC, with the start of the Celtiberian Wars, Rome was forced to advance the beginning of the official year, from the Idus of March, 15th of March, to the Calendus of January, 1st of January, so that the consuls appointed each year to wage war in Hispania had enough time to move in and start the campaign in spring. This change of dates marked the beginning of our current year, as our calendar is of Roman heritage. The beginning of the Celtiberian Wars was triggered by the city of Segeda building a new defensive wall. The Romans interpreted this as a violation of peace treaty terms signed with Gracchus, so in response an army was sent to the city commanded by Nobilior. As the wall wasn't finished, and they were therefore unprotected, the people of Segeda left the city and went up to the high Duero, reaching Numantia, where they were welcomed as allies and friends. In this unfair way, said Florus, Numantia entered the war, leading the Celtiberic resistance against Rome for 20 years. Segeda and Numantine people, who had chosen Carus from Segeda as their leader, achieved a major victory against Nobilior, killing 6,000 Romans on August the 23rd, 153 BC, a day dedicated to Vulcan, which was declared ill-fated from then on. No Roman general would engage in battle in the future on that day. Nobilior waited for reinforcements of Massinissa, king of Numidia in the north of Africa, and ally of Rome, consisting of 300 riders and 10 elephants. To surprise the Celtiberians, he arranged his troops so that the elephants were hidden in the rear. And opening the formation at a given time, the beasts appear by surprise, terrifying the Celtiberians and their horses, who fled to seek refuge in the city. From the wall, they fired all kinds of projectiles and stones. One of them hit the head of the elephants. Enraged, it altered the rest, and turning against their own people with terrible bellows, they trampled, killed, and disbanded the Romans. When the Numantine people saw that the Romans were fleeing, they went in their pursuit, killing a good number of them and 3 elephants, seizing their arms and ensigns. Scipio's siege. Numantia's people defeated the Roman generals several times. In the end, Rome had to send Publius Cornelius Scipio Aemilianus, who had destroyed the city of Carthage. He, after defeating in the middle Duero the Vacae, who were allies of the Numantines, isolated the city with a well-guarded fence. he made 7 settlement camps in the nearby hills, joining them by a solid 9-kilometer perimeter wall, protected in front by a moat and a wooden palisade, and placing 2 forts in the meeting point of the rivers Tera and Mardancho with the Duero. The Numantines challenged their invaders several times, but the Scipio's patient wait turned out to be the answer. "20 years of war and 11 months of siege had passed, and food stocks had completely run out. Without grain or cattle or fodder, they began to eat cooked hides, but these too were soon to be scarce, so they had to turn to the last and terrible resource: eating the dead. The city fell due to starvation in the summer of 133 BC, each dying in their own way and the survivors being sold as slaves. The city was ruined and its territory divided amongst the natives who had helped Scipio. Epilogue. Numantine resistance against the conquest of Rome and its heroic ending is a symbol of universal reference, due to its bond with something as essentially human as a people's struggle for freedom and the defense of the weak against the strong. The Numantines' attitude shocked the conscience of the conquerors so much that they in turn felt conquered by the Numantine cause, raising their resistance and heroic ending to the limit, thus providing a universal dimension and almost reaching legendary status.